Thanks everybody, and it's really great to be here. As you can see from the title, we're talking about the WA Farm Data Sharing Project, and it's all about trust. Associate Professor Adam Sparks is the project leader. He's currently overseas, so I'm presenting today on his behalf, and as Dave said, I've got Lucas and Matthew to answer any technical questions that you might have. The WA Data Sharing Project is the third project developed as part of the WA node of the Food Agility CRC, and the project would not be possible without the financial support from Food Agility, the State Government of Western Australia through JITSI and DPIRD and the Grower Group Alliance, or the support from Curtin University and AxisTech and the farm businesses that have been so generous in sharing their knowledge and data as participants in the project. The project started in July 2022 to demonstrate the value of data sharing using the Xstrata eConnect Plus platform that's been developed by DPIRD. Using liming strategies as a use case and whole farm management solution tools as a value proposition for participation. So why are we choosing liming? It's a low risk data set. It's farm input that's needed year on year, and DPIRD are the lead researchers in applied soils research in Australia. And it also leverages off existing apps and knowledge that have been developed through co-investment between DPIRD and GRDC. The project aims to enable growers to make more sophisticated investment management decisions from their own farm data. And it encourages farmers to realise the benefits of sharing data, utilising lime and an optimal liming strategy as a use case. The project will demonstrate the ability to create an early adopter community of practice, a unique and seamless electronic data transfer system using APIs from the farm and back again, the use of whole farm using Monte Carlo simulation models to tailor lime management strategies for a specific farm, and a self-contained redeployable cloud-based computing environment using a turnkey system that will containerize for ease of transfer and control. So this provides a bit of an overview of the project, and it really highlights the data sharing principles about what we're trying to develop as part of this process, and using lime as a use case to create the pipeline, and in future we can develop further use cases to apply to the system. So in terms of the ingestion of data the data comes in a range of formats that organisations such as AxisTech have had to modify to fit the parameters required. Digitised paper copies, as we all know, farmers have a lot of data in paper and in notebooks and even in their heads, and this all needs to be resolved. We've built an API to seamlessly ingest existing farm data from third-party farm management software services such as AxisTech or accounting software like Xero, and automatic systems, for example, the Internet of Things, that provide information like header maps, on-farm weather stations, station data, level sensors and precision maps, as well as localised historical weather data to create future climate scenarios for individual farms. The APIs will allow complete control of them, complete control by them, the farm data originators, to allow or deny data transmission to DPIRD. Once DPIRD's acquired the data through the Xstrata eConnect Information Gateway platform, it will be securely stored in a database optimised for flow to and from the gateway. The model will access the data from here to predict yield and crop values using the farmer's data. And finally, the model results will be sent back to the farmer through a reporting framework that's connected by API that interfaces with third-party ag software providers such as AgWorld or MyFarmSmart for helping them make decisions on the best strategies for applying lime, and the data that DPIRD receives from them will be deleted. So what's the output? So Kelly and Alan will be able to make more sophisticated and strategic management decisions about their lime placement across their farm. And eventually, we hope this will lead to them enjoying high profits and lower risks so that they can put their kids through college. They'll be able to take the reports with them to meetings for lending, insurance policies, leasing, and property transactions that will be made with high confidence and lower risks. And as I said before, the system's been developed to be scalable to other use cases, starting with variable rate technologies and leading into other agribusiness decisions. So the early adopter community, it consists of approximately 20 farmers and industry members. The teams had a lot of engagement with grower groups and farmers by the GGA network, and AxisTech's done an awful lot of heavy lifting in this space. There's been attendance at 13 field days and workshop events with a total of about 375 growers and industry representatives. We've had newsletters, social media, and other communications. But in all of this highlights some of the gnarly challenges that I think we're all familiar with over the last 2 days. So converting a farmer who's willing to be involved in a project to actually delivering their data. Challenges around data sets not being digitised or missing. The amount of time it takes for farmers to gather this data, and even having the opportunity to pay them to help with the cost of data capture. It's still a challenge. So some of the data ingestion solutions that we've developed as part of the project include working around building trust. So the early farmers in the projects have to trust in the process and also trust in the individuals involved in the project. Lots of on-farm visits, sitting around at the kitchen table to help develop that trust and communicate the value proposition of being involved in the project. The continued engagement via the early adopter community, field days and workshops, newsletters, and social media. We're also trying to simplify the process, providing simple online forms that are linked to the project 2-page data agreement. And again, redefining the value proposition. What do the participants get out of it? What does the project get out of it? And what's the collective benefit of being involved in the project? And we're also investigating creating further linkages with farm management systems such as AgWorld, in addition to our work with AxisTech. So, more gnarly challenges sitting in the API and model development stage. I'm sure this is familiar to most of the people online, but the recruitment is a really gnarly challenge at the moment. It's a tight job market in WA, and I'm sure it is across the state, particularly for developers and data-enabled people, and it's really slowed down the technical build. We've had an interim part-time in-house recruit to help kick off the project, and we've recently been able to recruit Matthew to the project, who's a young developer, and he's been a really great addition to the team, and he's been progressing the technical side really well. It's great to have you on board, Matthew. Eureka moment. So our developers have turned the iLime app into an API. This is really exciting. The iLime app was developed as part of a co-investment between GRDC and DPIRD, and now we're bringing some of the capability into this project. So what this means is basically we've taken the iLime app, shown here on the left, as you would use it in your iPad, and created an equivalent solution using Julia, a programming language, using a Julia client on the right here to communicate with an API written in .NET, which is at the bottom right. Shown on the right is the equivalent of using the app in the Julia client, calling the API of the default settings when running the iLime app without making any changes to the default input. The API returns a JSON string of values, which is on the right here, that contains exactly the same information that the app does, which is on the left. However, it's up to us to format and present it in a useful way. Using this approach means that we'll be able to programmatically call the model behind the iLime app over and over and over to carry out the Monte Carlo simulations quickly and efficiently. The results will then be presented in the reports to farmers for them to choose the strategy that works best for their farm enterprise. We're still working on the format of the reports, but they're likely to include outputs related to probability distribution curves and or probability of exceeding graphs. We will co-design the reporting structure and outputs with the farmers and agronomists in the early adopter community in order to present this information in the most relevant way. Another Eureka moment that's led to this, we're using this method to also rewrite the mobile applications as APIs for another project that we've been involved with that DPIRD's been involved with GRDC as part of our plan to commercialise existing decision support tool applications that are available on Apple and Android devices. For example, the yellow spot WM for wheat yellow spot and sclerotinia CM for the canola sclerotinia spray decision support. These are two existing apps that we plan to make available through Backpaddock and AgWorld via API through DPIRD's Xstrata by 2024. So, some of the technical details. The production environment. So, a Docker container instance of iLime API has been tested, and we're going to continue to use this. It's a Pawsey cloud hosted instance that has 16 cores and 64 gigabytes of RAM for running our models. Although the iLime API could be hosted anywhere, we felt that this was the optimal solution for the Monte Carlo simulations that we wanted to perform, and that we would have minimal latency and allow for the best reliability for our purposes by having the APIs running on the same server as where the model will be performed. We will also be running the model framework to perform the Monte Carlo simulations in a Docker environment as well, so it will be self-contained and redeployable. So in sum, we'll have two Docker containers talking to each other. So where to from here? The challenges that we're seeking to resolve presently are around currently the iLime API is only available to this project for modeling work. We're evaluating opening the endpoints for the API through Xstrata and releasing our Julia client as an open source product to support the use of the API. DPIRD is also working with our IP team to discuss the possibilities around doing both of these things. These two things are not the model itself. The model will remain the IP of the Grow Group Alliance and will not be released publicly. So there's quite a big team and of people from DPIRD and AxisTech and Grow Group Alliance and Curtin, and so I'd really like to thank everybody involved in the team for getting the project to where we are. And that's a wrap, Dave. And I've put Adam's email contacts down the bottom in case anybody would like to reach out to him after the meeting.
No, look, thanks, Julia and team. And look, that's great because we actually have quite a few questions on this one as well. So, that's really cool. So first one comes from Geet, who's buried down in the engine room bowels of the Surdy meeting room. Really interesting project. How did you resolve the farmer records and import those data like the paper copies without it taking time and support effort? What's the issue or the challenges around ingesting this stuff in? So the system?
That's a really great question, and I think that's one that we might need Lucas
do you want to bring me in for that?
That'd be great. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks for the question. I'm not going to pretend it's not a difficult problem to deal with. Certainly, there are a lot of farmers out there that have data exclusively on physical documents. Each set of documents, as you would know, it's like a unique template that we have to deal with. So we usually look to build out an OCR recognition template model and then just apply it to copies of the scanned documents, and then it's a process of going through and cleaning that. It's a case where, as we go along, we've gotten better with that process and refined that process based on like the known and expected values for chemicals and time periods. And we also have support from the farmer around expected paddock names and whatnot. So yeah, it's not like a quick instantaneous process yet, but yeah, we're working towards making it as efficient as possible.
Thank you, Lucas. So about the data sharing agreement that was mentioned earlier, have you found that the hard copy or versus a digital version, for example, any preference from the farmers, from your producer partners?
Oh, that's also a good question. Have we released the digital version yet, Lucas?
I think when we've been communicating just once before, it's just been as a digital copy, unless we've signed, they're happy to sign up in a conversation in person. Usually it's just been a digital copy so far, and we haven't had too many issues with that. Most farmers have been tech savvy enough to deal with signing it electronically. Yeah, occasionally you do come across people who prefer physical documents, but for the most part, we found electronic documents are fine.
Cool.
I think it's the timeliness as well, Dave. It's the once you've got people ready and happy to be involved, I think that's where you need to get the contract in front of them, because they're all really busy and they'll go off and do something else, and it'll take a long time before the next opportunity you get to talk to them to get them to sign on the dotted line.
Yes. The DPIRD environment plays a really important role. The eConnect gateway, the Xstrata gateway, and Darren Gibbon gave us a really great insight into that in a monthly research seminar a little while ago. So the data flows into the gateway and it runs through the algorithm, and then it's sort of connected to APIs out into the next environment. You mentioned that you made the comment about DPIRD holds onto the data for the purpose it's needed for and then deletes it, or sort of releases it and then deletes its own copy. And I think that struck a nerve in one member of the audience, because obviously thinking about this issue of data retention and the risks associated with external parties accessing it. How long is that sort of data held within the DPIRD environment as part of the process?
Do you want to have a go at that, Matthew?
Yeah, I can have a go at it. Thanks for your question. I think from my conversations with Adam, who's my line manager at DPIRD, I think the data is just held on to until the completion of the project. So it goes to the farmer, the grower who's given us their data, the outputs to, and then DPIRD will delete it at the end of the project. If a farmer requests to have their data pulled from the project early for whatever reason, we have up to 30 days or so to get rid of it, and we have to do that in a secure and safe fashion. So yeah, I think it just it gets deleted at the end of the project. Yeah.
Thanks, Matthew. Can I add to that, Dave? I think
yes.
Part of the purpose of this project was to demonstrate around that trust in data sharing with the state government. So I think that there's a bit of sentiment out there in the farming community that, the government's going to do more things with my data than what they say they're going to do. So to be able to use this liming use case as an example of, we're going to say what we're going to do what we say we're going to do, and then we're going to delete your data and actually provide you a value proposition at the other end. I think that's a really important part of what this project's attempting to demonstrate. And then the opportunities to build from lower risk data sets into other spaces, building on that trust that we have with the grower community, I think will open up opportunities in this space.
Absolutely. Look, agreed. And I think with DPIRD's being the trusted intermediary, as it is, and that's in a way why this project has garnered so much interest from across a range of sectors, because it really is a groundbreaking pilot or a demonstrator. So
the other part I was going to say about that is that, because this will be owned by industry through the GGA, is the other part that's really important to remind everybody of.
Yes. Okay. So the next question, actually, looking at, there's two questions, but I think they're one and the same thing. So I'm going to have an attempt at blending it. But Andrea and Mick, if I've got it wrong, come back. So the way that the data flows have been rendered sort of looks like it's a closed system. Are there any intentions for data to flow to other third parties outside the current co-signatories? And I guess touches on the earlier question around the nature of what a commercial model could look like and make it available to other actors. What's the thinking on that?
Lucas, I might have a go at this, and then perhaps you can add on from AxisTech's point of view, and then Matthew from DPIRD's. I understand that the principles around what AxisTech are trying to do is about digitising around FAIR principles and to be able to make data available for other purposes, and that having the gateway where farmers can tick the box and say yes to this, yes to this, yes to this, but not to that, gives you that flexibility of being able to add in other potential third party or whatever, but at the end of the day, the decision sits with the farm data originator. Did you want to add anything to that, Lucas?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up pretty well, Julia. Our platform is based around giving the farmers the control over their data, who it's shared with, and like this, and whatnot. So in a case like this, the outcomes from the liming project are still owned by the farmer. So it's up to them whether they want that shared and who they want that shared with. And from our experience with farmers, some of them are happy to provide their data to as many people as who want it, and some are very protective of their outcomes. So I think it'll probably shift as like the culture changes around data, as more people get familiar with being able to share their data and the value they can get out of sharing it. I think in the future there will be a lot more collaboration and free sharing of data, hopefully.
Matthew, anything to add to that?
Look, I think yourself and Lucas have covered it pretty well. It all goes back to just putting it all in the farmer's hands. They're the ultimate decision makers at the end of the day. So, yeah. Yep,
and the system's set up to be able to facilitate that in the most streamlined way.